Welcome to Forum 2024. I'm Michael Boss, Senior Minister of Marble Collegiate Church and Chair of the Board of the Temple of Understanding. Thank you for being a part of this important event. You won't want to miss these presentations because we have people ranging from climate experts to artists and religious leaders, so stay tuned and watch the entire forum. We hope it inspires you to action.
My name is Chief Arvol Looking Horse, and I'd like to do a prayer in my language first. Mukashla wakantaka petukle lawaste na lawaka. Nacho ate makak neche, mana wishiki kagam. Nukanacha makakle eche waka. Naha uchakpi waka naha apetukle na lawaste. Oyate Ukoya pi na uche wichozanikti mwoki na wangalaki. Taku eche na kache pi ka na kiapikti. Tiwaya kit kapi na uchozani na woki wangalaki. Kokate ke eche zanya kimani pi na choate na wochante washte akimani pikti lo national metakos. Blessings and greetings to each and every one of you listening, and I want to start by saying that I am the 19th generation keeper of the sacred pipe, and I've been a sacred bundle keeper since I was 12 years old. So today is a great message to the world of fulfilling our prophecy about the white buffalo calf with black nose, black eyes, black hooves. And it's we are at the crossroads. We are faced with global disasters, tears from our relatives' eyes. We are at the crossroads. It's a warning, but it's a blessing. A warning because the direction that we are not going is not good. And we're going to see the environment changing fast, like earthquakes, volcanoes, big winds. We're going to see a lot of false leaders and false prophets at this time. We're going to see great changes if we don't change back to what it should be, a blessing. The blessing is for each and every one of you to help us at this time when the white buffalo calf is born at Yellowstone. And the first one was at Janesville, Wisconsin, 1994. And we thought that was a very powerful message, 1994, because we had a lot of media, and it was like a needle in a haystack. 1994, the prophecy was what I read you, that we're at the crossroads. And then from that time till today, the second sign that Mother Earth gave us is this buffalo calf with black nose, black eyes, and black hooves being born in our generation at this time. And we do our ceremonies in our territories, and we always kept the stories and everything in our ceremonies, that we protect our ceremonies. But this is the sign is right now it's a great message to the world, because Today, Mother Earth is sick and has a fever. That Mother Earth needs us. And she can live without us. And no, we have a lot of renowned leaders in the past, like a lot of leaders that were spiritual leaders that were recognized, and we got spiritual leaders that are not recognized. Yet they hold a prophecy were ancient. And those teachings came to me as a sacred bundle keeper, the keeper of sacred pipe when I was 12 years old. They're the spiritual laws, the supernatural that comes with our ceremonies. And we kept everything intact. Of course, our ways were outlawed until 1978, the Freedom of Religion Act. But that kind of opened that door for our people to go outside the reservations and go back to our sacred sites. What we've been doing is like, especially since Standing Rock, we've been really standing and doing a lot of work with sacred sites. In our ceremonies, the sacred sites are that God-given. The Great Spirit gave us these sacred sites where there's pictographs. According to our teaching is that we follow the stars, the sun, and the star nation. We say Wichach Biwaka, the star knowledge. And today we still go by those teachings. And this year, everything now points towards Pipestone, Minnesota. So when we were getting ready to go Pipestone, Minnesota, we prepare for the whole year. We have the runners and horseback riders, and about a month before. And in our ceremonies, they told us that the thunder beings would welcome us. And we got to Pipestone, the blood of our people, because we ran that back in the 80s to protect our Pipestone, to be the blood of our people, to be to stop the quarries from making shot glasses, earrings, and bookends. We need to protect the red Pipestone quarries. And it's about life here. Our ceremonies is all about life. So we, through our ceremonies, we bring the thunder beings back. Through the ceremonies, we need the buffalo and the horses in those places, because we use them in our ceremonies. And back in the 80s, Virgil Kill Street had a dream he would bring the horses and the buffalo back. It's called mending the sacred hoop. And they gave me they call it obagi, or pipe, for me to be the spiritual leader. So I was a spiritual leader on that Bigfoot ride. We did that ceremony at Wounded Knee because it's supposed to be 100 years' time from 1890, the Wounded Knee massacre, 1990. We're supposed to unite our people in prayer and bring the buffalo and the horses back. So we did that. And we tried our best to bring the balance of nature back in place by honoring, doing horse ceremonies and buffalo ceremonies. And then, but time is really changing fast. And I heard about the white buffalo story when I was 12 years old. And he told me about the prophecy of the white buffalo. Someday the white buffalo calf is going to stand upon the earth when nothing is good, when everything is sickly. So the first calf that was born at what some people say, well, it's off the reservation and it's at a farm, but still there's a white buffalo was born with black nose, black eyes, black hooves. So we did our ceremony. So we went there, and anyway, it was like a needle in a haystack. And I couldn't believe this white buffalo calf was born either. But what happened was like the same year, the scientists came up with a statement called global warming. And here, that's that. And then from our ceremonies, we have the prophecy of the white buffalo. So, this is a message for the world, and that's how we put it. We set the message out to the world. And that from that time till today, another one was born at Yellowstone. And I was so overwhelmed, man. I just don't know that this is way above us. That's what I said. No, the spirit is, Mother Earth is calling, or bring that message out through the white animals, and that completes, fulfills our prophecy of the white buffalo calf woman story, that someday I shall stand upon the earth once again when Mother Earth is sick and has a fever. So that is happening right now as we speak, that Mother Earth is sick and has a fever, and it's our responsibility to take care of her. So that's what the message is. So in my statement, I did say that Mother Earth is a source of life, not a resource, because she needs us, we need her. Mother Earth dies, we die. That's what the elders always say. So right now the message is great, and it's a blessing for us to do something, but it's a warning too, but we want to stay in prayer with the positive people healing, and each and every one of you finding peace within your hearts and peace throughout the world at this time. And so these are signs, spiritual signs for us that we cannot walk away from, but because they came from ceremony. And that's what when I was, so everything since I was in my life, like being a sacred bundle keeper, 1970s, when we finally got electricity and water, I had a dream about that black and white TV where this person beside me touched that screen or pointed to the screen, it opened up like a book, and it closed. When it opened up like a book, people were standing in a circle, and it closed. It was turning like this, and then this person touched another part of the earth, and it opened up like a book, and different people were standing there, and a fire in the middle. And I told my father, that had to happen like to me 7 times in my dream. And I told my father the next day, he said, you got to put it through ceremony and pray about it. You can't make it happen. It's going to happen on its own. So that was when 1994, that first white buffalo was born. Now we took it to ceremony and said, we need to go back to our spiritual places and pray. And that's how World Peace and Prayer Day started in 1996. All nations, all faiths, one prayer. 1996, the first white buffalo was born, and our message is uniting all nations to pray for peace and harmony, because that's what the bundle I take care of, a spirit bundle, but it's about peace and harmony. That I know that there's many other people, their prophecies are coming true. It talks about the peace and harmony too, because I met with a lot of good people out there, leaders, and now we all have the same prophecies. So right now, the white buffalo being born is just I'm happy, but I'm sad now. My heart is heavy because we still have a lot of work with us for us to protect the earth and be healthy, because I grew up being a bundle keeper, and I stayed in our traditional ceremony all my life, and we're pretty strict with our ceremonies. But 78, a lot of people start abusing our ceremonies, and we need to protect our ceremonies. So that's what we're doing today. Is we got to be really respectful, because our original teachings are very respectful, and there's no the way things are today. Like our tradition is we have to unite as a buffalo. So the spirit woman that brought the sacred pipe said, "You are the buffalo people," and so we do all of our ceremonies and the spiritual laws that came with the sacred pipe. We need to still protect, but the message is beautiful. It's out there, and I hope and pray that people all over the world can hear the message, how beautiful it is, how the Great Spirit gave us a beautiful earth mother, and we need to take care of her like that. Yeah, so I want to say that Mother Earth is a source of life, not a resource. That we need to respect each other and make that change, for the future of our children. That's it. I hope. Washte. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cathlin Baker. I'm the minister at the First Congregational Church of West Tisbury on Martha's Vineyard. And I'm going to share with you an ancient poem, an archetypal poem from the Celtic tradition. As a child, I grew up in a household that was very interested in Celtic spirituality, and later in life found my way into the church and became ordained. And it seemed natural that Celtic Christianity would be a place where I felt at home. And in the Celtic Christian tradition, the connection to earth is central. So much so that in that tradition, they would speak of the importance of relating to both the big book and the little book. And the big book was the natural world, was creation, and the little book was scripture, the Bible as we know it. And so I think as I share this poem, you will hear the depth of connection to nature in Celtic spirituality. And this is called the Song of Amerigen. The Song of Amerigen. I am the wind on the sea. I am the ocean wave. I am the sound of the billows. I am the seven-horned stag. I am the hawk on the cliff. I am the dewdrop in sunlight. I am the fairest of flowers. I am the raging boar. I am the salmon in the deep pool. I am the lake on the plain. I am the meaning of the poem. I am the point of the spear. I am the god that makes fire in the head. Who levels the mountain? Who speaks the age of the moon? Who has been where the sun sleeps? Who, if not I?
Greetings to all who have gathered at Forum 2024. And I'm so happy to be joining Bob Thurman for this dialogue on ancient wisdom, indigenous knowledge, the sacred, the ecological challenge, and how we can regenerate the earth by regenerating our spiritual relationship with a living earth, a sacred earth. One of my favorite shlokas from the Isha Upanishad, it's a very tiny, tight Upanishad. It basically says the universe and the earth is permeated by the divine and is for the benefit of all beings, not just human beings. We should enjoy the gifts of the earth. They're not saying do penance, run away. Enjoy the gifts of the earth through renunciation. Don't get attached. Not through greed of possession and exploitation. Taking more than your share to fulfill our needs is theft from other species, other humans, and future generations. Such a powerful reminder, not just that the entire universe is sacred, but every part of the universe is sacred. And that sacredness puts limits on our relationship. We can enjoy the gifts, but within those limits. So I have watched indigenous cultures. They take the fodder from the forest, they take fuel from the forest, but they always first apologize to the forest goddess and say, we will only take the minimum needed to sustain our animals, to sustain our families. And limits are built into the recognition that the earth is living, the earth is sacred, the earth is for all beings. And our national poet Tagore interpreted this in a very powerful way. And he said, we are enjoined to see that whatever is in the world is divine, creative, self-organized. You gain by giving. A simple lesson in all ancient cultures. It's in giving that we receive. And if you look at nature, when the plant gives to the mycorrhiza gives back to the plant. All the cycles of symbiosis are economies of giving. But what I love is thou shalt not covet what others have. Abhor greed. In fact, the word greed is derived from the Sanskrit word gudha. Avoid greed. And right now, what we are living through is a domination of the limitless greed of the 1%, who have created all kinds of mechanisms to take more and more from the earth and accumulate more and more. But beyond the point, you cannot live by destroying the earth. And Gandhi summarized the same shloka to say the earth has enough for everyone's needs, but not for a few people's greed. And in my 50 years of ecological activism, the 3 lessons I have learned is first that the earth is living. Therefore, never despair. It's not, as I say, the world is not resting on our shoulders. We are not atlases. We are beings in the web of life. The whole web is created. Of the whole planet, your little room. The second thing I've learned is because everything is moving, everything is shared, all the earth's gifts are commons. And therefore, trying to own the earth, own the seeds through intellectual property is something I've committed myself for nearly 4 decades. I said, no, seed will stay in the commons. We will protect every aspect of diversity. We have to not just protect every aspect of the diversity, each of which has intrinsic worth, each of which has a right to live. But more than that, all of them are self-organized. And they are self-organized because every part of everything living is organized in symbiosis in what we call quantum entanglement. Everything's connected. There's instant movement of signals in plants to fend off pests, to grow, for the soil organisms to just flourish when you give back a little bit of what the earth has given you. Back to the earth in gratitude. That's what organic farming is. That's what regenerative farming is. A gesture of gratitude. Most importantly, it is an economy of care. An economy of care is to be practiced by each of us. If the small mycorrhiza and the tiny bee is practicing the economy of care and the economy of giving, we can have them as teachers and learn how to not go into despair because the 1% is trying to destroy the fabric of the earth. I wish you the best for your efforts at regeneration. I wish you the best to find your little niche on a sacred earth and do your spiritual duty, do your ecological duty, and then leave the rest to a beautiful universe. Thank you so much.
I have to say, in the present moment in history, is that it looks terrible, all these violent things going on everywhere. But and also the unrelenting behavior of the oil industry and the carbon pumping crazy and the wrong kind of agriculture and et cetera, chemical people, all chemistry obsessed people, and then the billionaires on their way to Mars because they gave up, but they all want to hang on to what they think of as their power. But the young people should be encouraged because it has become patently obvious for anyone without even uneducated person of any kind with no literary education, every shaman in the jungle can see that dictatorship is what is causing this. These wrong inherited structures where one person's bad mood and anger and paranoia and greed can destroy the lives of millions. And any structure that permits that is not purely chaotic and democratic and localized is just too dangerous with the amount of technological tools that we have. And it is obvious to everyone that that is the case. And the plants are screaming it, and Mother Earth is screaming it, and every young person is shouting this, not always intelligently. They sometimes think only that one is the dictator. And they don't realize that billionaires, mostly, there's a few exceptions, but mostly they become dictators because the reason is if you have too much power, you become scared of other people. You think they want your stuff. And like a person like Vladimir Putin is most scared of his own ministers, his own generals, his own bodyguards, actually. He hides down a table that's 40 foot long. And so once they get so scared, they get no true report of what's actually happening outside. They make insane self-destructive decisions and drag so many people into death and being maimed and torture and horrible, and all sorts of structures that put much stress on individuals, and unfortunately because of inherited patriarchy everywhere, it's usually males who do this and behave like this. The exceptional female who just is mimicking the males may be there, a female dictator here and there, but very rarely, because they are much more realistic. Women are, they're more bound to life and they're more aware of it. And they're a little less wild than males tend to be because they've been overprivileged by patriarchy for 5,000 years. So what is happening now is actually totally great. because they're not able to hide their misbehavior and their misunderstanding and foolishness, like I'm going to Mars, because this place is unviable. Well, they're making it unviable, although actually that particular individual who's most vocal about it has two sides to him, and they all do. I'm not proposing that we hate all the bad guys. That's not the way to conquer them. You don't hate some paranoid person. You might have to imprison them. You might have to stop them in their actions. You might have to defend yourself against them. Yes, but hate them. If you do it without hating, it will be successful. If you do it with hatred, you'll become like them. They will have conquered you. And everyone is understanding this, and it's not a matter of some Buddhist theory. It's not a matter of Christian theory or Muslim theory or Hindu theory or Taoist theory or materialist humanist theory. It's all, none of those theories, if they are taken as absolutes, are going to be helpful. It is any part of all those theories that stress compassion, that stress individual responsibility, that are okay about a little chaos, they can handle it. They love democracy. It's like the Dalai Lama. He was taken by Mao's people to the Chinese parliament in 1954. Nobody spoke a word. They were looking in terror at the dictator. What can I say? What does he want me to say? He didn't say anything. He was dead silent. And of course, Mao was ruining the country totally. And and he did actually successfully. Then he fooled Kissinger and Nixon, and he built them up economically, but it's still under a dictatorship, and it's terrible, and it's harming its neighbors. And it's supporting harm and a theory of harm, that dictatorships are good for industry and for life, which is the absolute opposite of what is the case. And so then the Dalai Lama went to India in 1956. Mao was forced to let him go because Nehru insisted, and Mao was into fooling Nehru, that he could allow them to have all the headwaters of all India's rivers, northern India's rivers, and that would be fine for India, which it isn't. But so he let him go, and then he went to the Indian parliament with Nehru, and he noticed everybody was shouting. It was chaotic. It was hard to do anything. But the country was in difficulties. It had been just liberated after having been. I have an emergency here. I'm talking for 10 minutes. I'll be going. I won't be there. I'll be there on time. Bye. And he was so happy with the chaos. He realized just by that the democracy was it, which they didn't have in Tibet. In a way they did, because of Tibetan sort of scattered way of their society, small numbers in a vast space, and the nomadicness of them. The Tibetans are very independent-minded in a way, but religiously they still have an authoritarian and patriarchal system to some extent, but not as oppressive at all, because nomads just can't be oppressed. They're like wild yaks. And so anyway, he's been an advocate and an apostle of democracy ever since. And his connection to Tom Paine and esoteric Buddhism has been doing that, undermining the patriarchy for thousands of years, but not as ism. Then it can become another authority structure, which is not helpful today. What is helpful is building up the individual's understanding, their kindness, because from understanding and empathy comes kindness, and comes intelligent decisions, and comes listening to women who don't fill a room, but they know what's going on in a room. Stupid men fill a room with their big egos, but they don't know what's going on anyway. And they don't learn how to meet anybody in the room, and they don't learn anything. Whereas intelligent women, immediately, they know everything that's going on in a room, so they're practical. They touch base with where there is needed a base touch. So therefore, men need to listen to them, because men also have something to say, but there should, I'm not saying female dominance, I'm saying partnership. I'm a disciple of Rihanna Eisler, Chalice and the Blade, the idea of a partnership society where men and women are equal and they listen to each other. But because of patriarchy, men more now have to listen to women. And all those dictators, where's Mrs. Putin? Well, she was divorced, and then he had trophy wives, Where's Mrs. Mao? Mrs. the new Mao, but we don't see her anymore. We did, but now we don't. We just see him smiling and being a boss and actually being scared. That's the problem. They become scared. And we should be sympathetic with them, they go crazy. You have the right-wingers in the crazed Israeli government, and we have the crazed Hamas people. We have the crazed Ayatollahs over there trying to destroy the women and put them back in a sack and so forth. I mean, it's really ridiculous, and all young people know it. So don't think of it as doomsday coming, although the possibility of doomsday coming if the men keep behaving like this, the dictators, especially dictators, and we have our own would-be dictator, but who's fading away now. So don't worry about it. He's gone really nuts. He's talking about the Reich, the new Reich, R-E-I-C-H, like the Third Reich. He's talking about a Fourth Reich here. He's going nuts, So only the complete crazed ones will follow him, and it'll be a landslide to keep and Biden might even retire. Who cares? He's elderly, but he's intelligent, and he is devoted to democracy, in fact. And therefore he's poor after 40 years in the government. He's not rich. And it can be easily seen. His son can go and sell himself any old way. He's also messed up. He's not rich, or he's not happy. He's under indictment, and that'll happen if that has to happen. But he didn't do anything that serious, actually. So the point is, be happy. Don't hate even the bad guys. See it clearly. Be encouraged yourself. Stand up for the environment. Stand up against chemistry. Stand up to stop the river of plastic that is flowing into all the sea fish and sea mammals and terrible situation. And use paper. Take your bag to the supermarket. Don't go to the farmer's market if possible. Okay, be kind to other people and be empathetic even with the bad guys, but oppose them strongly. Vote and get the vote out, and see to it we don't get dictators anywhere, okay? At the local level, in the school board, in the police department, in the mayor of the village, whatever it is, no dictators. And listen to the women in the family. And that will be fine. Everything is going to be beautiful. It's just happening. And it's because everybody knows everything now. So learn a lot, also study. Learn everything you can from every source. And don't be a rigid fanatic on any particular ideology, okay? So that's what I have to say. And unfortunately, I have to rush off. It's just terrible. And I'm so sorry about it. And I love Vandana Shiva. You have the greatest person in the world, one of the bravest women in the world. You have Bill McKibben, who is also a male like me, but he's really the best. And he has a vision of how it can be done, and and he doesn't give up. And he's very articulate and eloquent, and he looks everywhere. And I deeply admire and respect him. And they will discuss this from their own perspective, and they know better than me. I'm just an ivory tower professor, but I do think that it is accurate what I'm saying. And you young people have the energy, and I'm only just merely repeating Dalai Lama's vision about it, and you will prevail, and this planet will be beautiful by 2050. It has to be, because if they carry on, it will be really tornado for breakfast, okay, everywhere, and sea level rise, crocodiles in Miami in the discotheques. So lots of love to all of you, okay? And thank you so much, Allison, and the wonderful Temple of Understanding, which I've always been a super fan ever since my beloved Julian Hollister, who I totally adore.
Welcome to our conversation. And Melanie and I have just recently met, but we thought we might begin by introducing ourselves. Melanie, would you like to begin?
Sure, thank you. So I have a helper here today. This is This is one of our sacred colors. So in our culture, we have 4 sacred colors: red, white, black, and yellow. This is the color of language. It's also part of my name, which I will introduce. So I'll speak in Anishinaabe Ojibwe for a couple of moments here as I introduce myself. So Bojo and Dino Amagadaduk, that's greetings to my relatives. Washke Ogichidakwe Zanung, Indigenous cause, Wa Ba Nangakwe Indigo Anishinaabe Mung. Those are my 2 spirit names. Mose and Dodem, I'm Moose Clan from my father's side. My mom is Loon Clan Mung. Bigtagong Anishinaabe Gijinakade Oshkinagan when GIN, the First Nation I'm from, is called Bigtagong Anishinaabe. I'm also from Kitagonzibi First Nation, Nindonchi. And I'm here in Bawating, so Bawating, Nindoya, Nungam, which is the place of the rapids along the St. Mary's River in between Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario and Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. And Malani Indigenous cause Jaganashimung. So in English, I'm called Malani, named after my late father, Delaney Baugh. So we say Baugh when someone is in the spirit world. And so he passed many years ago, Delaney, and my mom, Melinda, who lives with me here in Bawating. So they halved it up, spelled it like Melanie, but it's pronounced Malani. And, recognizing where I am here in Bawating, it's just a few minutes from our home community of Garden River First Nation. And it's part of the Three Fires Confederacy of the Potawatomi, Odawa, and Anishinaabe. So Anishinaabe Kweyanda, I'm an Anishinaabe woman. And the English translations of Ojibwe are often also heard as Chippewa or Salto or Ojibwe in English. But we say Anishinaabe to refer to the human beings and to refer to ourselves. So that's part of the cultural protocols of how I introduce myself. And I'm delighted to be here in conversation with you today.
Well, it's a beautiful introduction. And I can't quite match all of it. I'll do my best. My name is Nina Simons, and I am the daughter of Rhea Cantor Simons Goodman and Barnett Simons. I grew up in New York City, home of the Lenape people, but I have lived for over 40 years now outside of Santa Fe, New Mexico, in the traditional homelands of the Tewa, Tiwa, and Keres-speaking peoples, also known as the Pueblo peoples of northern New Mexico. I feel a really deep affinity with this land, more so than I ever did in New York City, and have been cultivating my own relationship to this place, to the grandfather peak named Shaggy Peak that is behind me, and the beautiful sense of deep history and a quality of sacred feminine that I perceive in this land that I find healing and nurturing and teaching for me. I also come to be here through a long relationship with the Temple of Understanding, who have graciously invited me into numerous conversations, which I have learned so much from. So I'm really happy to be here with you, Malani, and to dive into rich topics together. I was hearing you talk earlier about the educational work that you're doing in a decolonial context, and it made me happy to hear that, because I find myself in my own learning, I have consistently felt a metaphor with decolonizing my mind and heart from a culture that I was raised in but don't share values with. And so it's been a very long process for me, which continues, of peeling away layers of the onion skin while I discover yet another embedded belief system that is not mine and that I just kind of accumulated over time. But I think reinventing and reimagining education feels so vital to raising up our leaders at this time. So I was thrilled to hear you doing that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, miigwech. Miigwech means thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think, my education, when I think about being an educator now, I just finished within the last year my doctorate in social and ecological sustainability from the University of Waterloo. But going right back to being in kindergarten and all through my own education, there was, this hidden curriculum of of an anthropocentric bias, as how I would describe it, from the perspective of having my own mind colonized by that way of thinking, both through what was recognized as valid knowledge and what was invalidated, like knowledge that comes from land, that comes from a place of spirit. Bewajiganan, we say dreams and visions. Dreams and prophecies are a huge part of our decision-making process. It's where knowledge comes from. So our ways of knowing, very embodied and holistic. It comes through ceremony, through practice. It's an oral culture, so there's a lot of storytelling. And I found through the formal education process that I was losing some of those frequencies. The elders like to call it the frequencies of listening to Mother Earth. And I was tapping into other frequencies like, data and empiricism and positivism. And so as I went through graduate school, I was recognizing myself. And when I say, colonized, this colonial way of thinking that is very anthropocentric, transactional, I would catch myself. But in particular, when I would speak with elders and language speakers who speak our languages fluently, because those languages, the structure of those languages come from a place of land and relationship with the local land and landscape, and how we say things is very different. And you can't really even translate back and forth, but we do the best we can with English. And so English as a dominant and dominating language really shapes the way that we think about things, about that relationship, and it disconnects us from those relationships. And so a dear colleague of mine, I was just having a conversation with him earlier this week, Teokus and Ghost Horse, who speaks Lakota. He talks about the nounification and nounifying and the thingification of the world. When something is a tree versus grandmother cedar or grandfather birch, we tend to thingify, nounify, and therefore disconnect from that being as a relative. So our whole language is a kinship-based language with very few nouns. There's a lot of verbs, not really the binary of male and female either. It's really about animate and inanimate. So you can speak for a long time and not say a noun. But we tend to, fear and objectify other beings, human and non, if they're a thing. That's what dehumanization is, which is really the underlying frameworks behind things like racism. And so I think the way we treat Mother Earth, our Earth Mother, the way we treat each other, we're socialized into that from a very young age. And I think the education system has such a powerful role to play in teaching young people right from the outset about complexity and the beauty of, understanding the world as a complex living system.
Well, and I imagine also revivifying your traditional cultural stories and ways of knowing. I'm reminded as I listen to you that I once heard Rebecca Adamson say that in her culture, there's no word for the love of a thing, because anyone who loves a thing, an inanimate object, is considered insane. Love is reserved for our relatives who are all around us. And the other thing that I was noticing as you spoke is that, I've had an experience last year. There was a very big forest fire that was the biggest in New Mexico's history, and it was not far from our home. We live on the edge of national forest land, and there was a time when I became really fearful for the safety of our home and the land around it. And I went to a friend who had studied a lot with an Indigenous teacher and asked her if there was anything she could teach me that would help us protect our homeland. And she said, yes. Identify a tree that you feel a strong connection with and create an altar around it, and use flowers or shells or anything you want to create the altar, and then nourish that altar daily with water and sometimes with wine. And as you do, send your prayers into the roots of the tree and through the branches of the tree, and ask for its forgiveness, and tell it how much you care for it, and ask if it will be willing to protect you, and send those prayers down into its roots to the mycelium and the soil people and the rock people, and up through its branches to the star people and to the mountain that lives nearby. And I've done that ever since. And, what I found was that not only how grateful I was that our home didn't burn down, but it's really deepened my relationship to this place and the way that I feel held by it. And having a ritual that I could do in an embodied way that was really about deepening my connection to that relative and these relatives that surround us. It's so different than a Western way of being and knowing and relating.
I think having an embodied practice and an experience like that is so important, in thinking about education and, the work I do in transformative systems change. It tends to be very cognitive, intellectual. We have conversations, we write, we read, we try to think our way out of situations. And so you could have sat there and thought about, the forest fire and sent some good energy that way. But having an embodied practice, and I think that's why, connecting to the land and having people with opportunities to be in relationship with the land. We had a workshop, colleagues of mine and I, a couple of weeks ago in Stowe, Vermont. And so we were amongst the Abenaki traditional territory, but amongst the Green Mountains. And I offered a ceremony that connected them to letting go. So we call it a brushing off ceremony. And it takes medicines and brushes them off with an eagle fan. But it's part of a letting go ceremony. And I said, I know this isn't your culture. And so there's about 50 people there from around the world. And I said, it isn't an invitation that this becomes your ceremony per se, because you don't have the protocols to do that. But it's an invitation to participate in the ceremony, and the medicines themselves will determine what it is you're letting go of. So you may be conscious or unconscious of what you're letting go of. The medicines will know. And then I take that and I give that to the mountains and to Mother Earth to hold that, because she has the strength to hold, what they're letting go of. And I think that's what folks will remember. They'll remember the conversations and dialogue walks and theories and frameworks that were presented. But I've heard from people actually that say that they felt really changed after that ceremony. And that particular ceremony, from our perspective in Anishinaabe, is really to prepare you to go into a deeper ceremony. So we brush people off before they go into a sweat lodge or go do their fast. And I think, it helps us as physical beings, but we are spiritual beings on a physical journey. And to remember that spirituality, we need some help sometimes. We need helpers and practices and teachings that help us remember that kinship relationship. And just really quickly, I'll share, when I first was studying things like ecology, and I started to, always hear people talk about connecting to nature or wilderness or the environment or even the biosphere. I always thought, I don't ever remember elders talking like that. They never said those words in English. So I asked a language speaker in Anishinaabe, do we have a word for environment or nature or wilderness? And he said, his name's Albert Hunter from Rainy River First Nation. And he said, no, our word is Gidakimanan. And Gidakimanan means everything in creation. The sun, the moon, the stars, the mountains, the waters, the animals, the plants, and your sacred place in creation, you as a being that's a part of creation. And so our word for nature, I guess, or the land translates to everything. And I think that's so beautiful. And that's, why I say English is a difficult language to try to capture the really dynamic and beautiful kinship relationship that we have as humans, all humans, who are all indigenous to Earth Mother.
Well, you do a pretty beautiful job at it, my friend Maleni. I want to bridge us to this moment and just recognize, I have been co-shepherding an organization called Bioneers, which really was started in 1990 in response to James Hansen sounding the alarm about climate change. And of course, our work encompasses many other things because we recognize that just as your word for nature is everything, it's all connected, right? We can't just address the political aspect or the educational aspect without addressing the other social aspects and all of it. So it's all interconnected. And we are in a moment of existential challenge, I would say, or polycrises, some people call it. And I'm reminded as I listen to you also that, we're in a moment of choosing between visioning forward and a culture that's based on fear and greed. And my sense has long been that part of the reason that our governance and our culture are so messed up is because we don't teach our children how to relate to their emotions. And so, I'm acutely aware of the choice that lies before us and how important it is with respect to the future of all life on Earth. And, I think I've become acutely aware of the incredible horror of what extractive industries have been doing both to Indigenous communities and to the land that they care for and live on and that they traditionally are related to. And so I find myself, as I've long been exploring leadership, I remember thinking when I was younger that I didn't want to engage in leadership that framed everything as a fight, because I didn't believe that that's how transformative change happens. But at this moment, I feel like as young elderhood is coming up on me, I am recognizing that there are things we have to take a stand for. And it certainly is the future of our children and the children of all of our relatives on Earth. So I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I think that's, it's really beautiful to, when we think about creating conditions for, the future, that we have agency in doing that. And that agency is expressed in our language. When I was writing my dissertation about something called transformative systems change, I asked elders, Eleanor Skeed and Bert Landon, who speak Anishinaabe fluently, I said, how would we define transformative systems change in our language? And they said, Negani mini go wiziwin. So mini go is that which is given to you, Ijiwin from somebody else. So it's your sacred knowledge bundle. And it's a gift. And Nagani is like the future, or that's which is coming. And so they said, Nagani mini goziwin are the gifts that we give to the future. And so your ancestors and all of the spirit beings, the universe, the mystery, whatever your culture, teaches you about these non-human helpers, they hear our distress. They know that the humans are in distress, and they hear our songs, they hear our crying, they hear our frustration with trying to make sense of it all. And so they taught me also about prophecy. And so the Nagani Minigoziwin is that we give these gifts to the future. And the other teaching is Wasa Inabada, which is we look in all directions. And so my, formally educated, colonized mind thought, and even though I grew up in my culture, I was still educated, in this way that socialized me to think about, the world in a certain way. And I've always had to fight that to come back. That's why I go to ceremony and I speak to elders and, carry a medicine bundle. And they said, Wasa and Nabada, this was Sandra Indian from Anigaming First Nation. She said, it isn't the four directions. So I thought it was the four cardinal directions, southeast, north, and west. She said, no, it actually means to look 7 generations before, 7 generations to come, and the current generation, and that you're holding those simultaneously. And so that generational thinking, and many people have heard of, from different nations, indigenous nations on Turtle Island, the 7 generations thinking. Wasa Inabada, that teaches us to think about the beings that are coming, but also what we're needing to remember. And then what we're currently doing. And so the prophecy of the 7 fires, and there's other prophecies, but just quickly, that prophecy foretold of a time when the 7th fire, we would come to this, we could say polycrisis. We would come to this time where we had to make a decision as the humans on Earth about whether or not we would destroy Mother Earth and all the other beings along with us, or we would shift direction, that we would consciously choose different pathways and trajectories, and we would collectively shift in that direction. And I think that's what we do when we, make decisions about who we support, how we become leaders, and what we, I guess, role model for others in leadership. Are those types of decisions. So are we going to fulfill the prophecy that we would come together? And so the Haudenosaunee Mohawk people, and I have a spiritually adopted uncle, 2 actually that are Mohawk, and my uncle Dan Longboat, he talks and shared with me about the river of life, and we're all sharing the river of life together. And it behooves us now to work together, to protect that river.
Yeah. Well, and I think of much of what I've learned from Chief Warren Lyons, who is the faith keeper of the Haudenosaunee or Iroquois Six Nations. And 2 things that come up for me as I hear you, Maleni, are that many years ago, we had a conversation on the Pioneers stage about a green political future. And what Warren Lyons said at that time was, you've got to raise up your leaders, And so that really speaks to the necessity of reimagining education and really consciously creating opportunities in all of our lives for intergenerational collaboration and what I call mutual mentorship, so that we can learn from the youngers and they can learn from us as elders, and support each other. And of course, as I'm sure the Iroquois Six Nations, as they are called in English, came together after a long period of embattlement, when the peacemaker taught them that it's in unity that we can survive and make peace and live in harmony. And I think we are facing political decisions, one of which is about unity and lifting each other up, and the other of which is about command and control and greed and fear and putting others down. And it feels like a very clear choice. And honestly, it's a choice, to me, it's a choice for what I hold most sacred, which is, as we've said, the future of all our relations. So let's see. I wonder, anything we want to add in our last minute?
Yeah, I think I would just, say that the teachings of the seventh fire prophecy, that the Ashkemadisig are the new peoples, and that many of the elders speak to this, that we are living in the time of many of those old prophecies coming true. And it's a bit of cognitive dissonance, because you feel like, well, out of the millions of, years and the thousands of generations and the hundreds of, years that we have been together as different nations, that this is the time that some of those prophecies would come together and come to be true. And it is. And so there is really, an invitation there to live into the fulfillment of those prophecies, that we would find a way to come together and be in the river of life together in a really respectful way. And that place, that river, is a sacred place for us to be in good relations with each other.
Beautiful. And for me, I think one of my greatest teachers, of course, is the natural world herself, from whom I've learned that biodiversity is essential for our resilience and our adaptation. And so don't we want to vote with our hearts and minds and hands for a future that is fully multicultural, multi-generational, that includes people of all ethnicities and faiths, people who come from all different kinds of backgrounds and classes, and that we have so much to learn from and with each other. And if we can foster a culture of pluralism that's based on reciprocity and respect, that's the way forward that will lead us in the right direction.
For sure. Well said. Apajago Magwich Bazindawiyag. Thank you for listening to me today.
Thank you for listening to me today, and thanks to all of you who are listening to us today.
Magwich.
Thank you.
Well, Xanaji, you start us off. Tell us what you're working on at the moment and how it's going.
Yeah, so my name is Zanaji Artis. I am a founder and the executive director of Zero Hour, and we are a global youth-led climate justice organization that leads mobilization, education, and policy advocacy to end the era of fossil fuels. And right now, we are campaigning against liquefied natural gas exports, which are a huge problem. And Bill, I know you know all about this. And we're trying to stop that in the Gulf, and also working with young people all around the world to stop it in countries that are importing U.S. gas, and gearing up for the election. So that's it.
You know what? I'm so glad that you guys have been out in front in that particular fight around LNG, because it might be the most important fight in the world, but it's one that most people know nothing about. It's kind of this stealth thing. And they do not know that if the industry continues to build all the terminals that it's planned on the Gulf Coast of the U.S., within a few years, American exports of liquefied natural gas will be putting more greenhouse gases in the atmosphere than everything that happens in Europe. Every car and factory and home from Athens to Helsinki will be doing less damage than just the climate impact of LNG coming out of the U.S. Gulf. And it's one of the reasons why this is such an important election. The Biden administration has tried belatedly, but finally, to stand up to this and put a pause on those, granting new permits for these terminals. And the other guy has said that on day one, first thing he will do is just grant every permit that they ever could have dreamed of, and just turn America into nothing else but a gas station.
Yeah. And I think we're already seeing some of that play out right now in Congress. And there's a fight right now to end the pause on liquefied natural gas exports and to mandate oil and gas leasing on federal lands and waters, fast track new approvals for LNG. And so I also think there's so much at stake for the Congress, and so much at stake for elections all the way down the ballot, to elect people who will actually champion climate action and champion what we're envisioning as a Green New Deal, thriving communities, and guaranteed clean air and water. So that's what we're fighting for. And what are you thinking about for the election?
Well, I'm thinking in just the same track you all are. I've been writing and working on climate change for a very long time. I wrote the first book about it back in 1989, which you can't even conceive of 1989, but it did exist, and I was there. And we're running out of time. The IPCC has told us that we have to cut emissions in half by 2030 to have some chance of staying on those Paris climate pathway. Well, the next president's going to be there till 2029. So basically, this is our last good shot. And the same up and down the ballot, as you say. We keep saying this election, the next election is the most important election in one's lifetime. I think this really is, and because if the wrong person wins it, then momentum will grind to a halt. If the right person wins it, we're in position now to move fast. The price of renewable energy, especially solar power, has fallen so sharply that it's really possible to imagine it happening quickly. And in a few places that have tried, we can see that. California this spring, day after day, has been generating more than 100% of its power from renewable energy. And at night, batteries are now the biggest source of power on the California grid. That's the 5th largest economy in the world and arguably the most modern. So we're set to go. We could make change happen in a big way if we got behind it and pushed.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of exciting stuff on renewable energy, and I want to talk a little bit about the fossil fuel supply side issues. I think that's a huge place for concern, especially among young people. And I think there's a lot of concern that Vice President Harris won't actually champion a fossil fuel phase out. But I do want to point out some of the progress we've made while also acknowledging that we did get approval of the Willow Project and the Mountain Valley Pipeline, and there are still liquefied natural gas exports happening. But I will say, I am excited about what we could do on climate with the Harris presidency. And we saw President Biden fight for a phase out of new fossil fuels leasing on federal lands and waters that was challenged in the courts and overturned. He put forward the lowest number of lease sales ever in the offshore drilling program. There's 3 lease sales that will happen all in the Gulf for the next 5 years. And so I think we also got the American Climate Corps, which we're really excited about that. 20,000 jobs for young people across the country. And it isn't the civilian climate corps that people were talking about in Congress. It isn't the millions of jobs that the Green New Deal could achieve, but that's on Congress. And we also need that action from them. And so I think, yeah, we had some losses for sure, but we've had more wins, I think, in this past administration than we've had in a very, very long time.
Could not agree more. You know, it always seems to me that the purpose of electing to someone to office is not because they're going to be your savior. They rarely are. It's because they're someone that you have some hope of influencing, of changing their policies in the right direction, of moving them. And that always takes work. Look, I thought, you know, I worked hard to get Barack Obama elected president, and then I organized some of the biggest demonstrations outside the White House while he was president in order to get him to change his mind on the Keystone Pipeline, which he did. More power to him. And that's why we need to elect good people to office, not because they're going to automatically do everything just right. The pressures on them are intense, and the fossil fuel industry is scary and powerful, you know, but if we have people in there who will listen, then we have at least a chance to do the work we need to do. One of the things I love about Zero Hour and Sunrise and so many other of the great youth organizing movements is that they realize that politics doesn't end on election day. In a sense, politics just begins on election day, you know, and that you have to keep up working and pushing and talking and arguing and showing up day after day after day to get things done. But, you know, in America, on an even numbered year, in August and September and October, your greatest leverage is as a voter or as an organizer of votes. And it's been really exciting to watch people just explode in the wake of President Biden's magnanimous announcement. Watching all these calls come together, Black women for Kamala, white dudes for Kamala, you know, climate this, you know, old people that, everybody kind of showing up. It's been a reminder of what politics should look like. It's not a spectator sport, it's a participation sport.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked a lot about the idea that we have to vote and then organize in the last election. And we do a lot of training young organizers and getting them the skills that they need to actually organize in their communities and at a national level. And I'm wondering, I guess, what is your perspective on that? Like, has that changed over time? Are people taking voting and running with that and going on to do political engagement? Or are we just more political now than we ever have been before? And what's that been like over time?
I think this stuff goes in waves, you know? And I sense right now, I mean, I sensed earlier this year that people were not ready for political engagement at all, you know? It just seemed too tired and whatever. And somehow the fact that President Biden really did patch the torch to a new generation seems to have liberated people to let their emotions run out again, to have some hope. the hard thing is to let yourself have hope for fear that it's going to get dashed, because psychologically that's really hard. And I think now we have permission to have some hope and to really engage. There are those of us who just do it all the time anyway, because that's how we're wired. But for a lot of people, this is a new moment. And I think that might be especially true for young people. It's such a difficult time to be young right now and staring down the barrel of climate change and down the barrel of a diminishing economic possibility and things. I understand why there are people who just sort of curl up in their room with TikTok and learn the next dance, But now I think people have some hope. And I know from working with old people like me at Third Act that people have a lot of hope that maybe we still can change what our legacy is going to be, that we still have some room. I think we were really afraid that this election, we might lose both the planet and our democracy at the same time. And now we've got a fighting chance. So people are ready to fight. And that's all we can ask, you got a fighting chance. So you got to go out and do the fighting.
Yeah, totally agree. I think we have a fighting chance with Kamala Harris in a way that we do not under another Trump presidency. And I think as I think about how I'll be engaging and getting people out to vote and organizing afterwards, I think really thinking about the conditions under which we want to organize. And like you were saying, you're fighting for someone who you actually think you can sway. And Kamala Harris is not the perfect candidate. And I don't know if there is a perfect candidate. But yeah, we have an opportunity to fight. We have a fighting chance with her. And I'm excited about that. And we're going to fight to end fossil fuel subsidies and for a climate emergency declaration and to stop pipelines everywhere. And we need someone in the White House who actually thinks climate change is a problem to do that. So, yeah.
Also, I got to say, I'm not sure my psyche can take another 4 years of that guy, tweeting out weird stuff all the time. And just, the other thing Kamala Harris promises a lot of progress on things and being open and so on. And she's also just like a normal human being, the kind of person that you or I meet in the course of a week and know and can relate to and so on. And man, that would be that's maybe the biggest contrast of all, as opposed to this guy who's just up there going on about Hannibal Lecter over and over and over again. And it's like, what are you even talking about, dude? And I think that people are reacting to that. I think they're like, okay, maybe there's a chance for normal here, which, we need a lot of change, but we also need some calm in order to make that change. So we're not just like just being in, sort of crazy state all the time. And
yeah,
don't get me started on the other guy. There's stuff about how if you don't have kids, you're not a real person and stuff. Come on. Let's show some respect to each other.
Yeah, I was seeing all of the commentary about cat ladies, and that was objectively weird. And there's a lot of talk from Democrats about both of the Republican candidates being very weird. And it's so true that, they are not serious people who are actually going to lead the United States towards progress. So, yeah.
Amen. Amen. What a pleasure to get to talk, man. And it'll be a great pleasure to get to do some stuff together in the years ahead. But so many thanks for just carrying the fight. And I think the alliance between young activists and old activists is a really useful one. The people in the middle don't have the time to get the work done. But But at either end of the spectrum here, we've got some time, and you guys have some energy. So between us, we'll figure out how to make this stuff happen. But many, many thanks.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for doing this for so long. And I appreciate you so much. And I think that it's so critical for this movement to be intergenerational. And I learned so much and get so much wisdom from people who have been organizing for so long. And so appreciate you too. And for everyone of you, yeah, like, don't get complacent. I just was recently reading that we passed 1.5 degrees Celsius for the past year. And that doesn't mean that that's locked in forever, but it's a huge deal. And we are on a dangerous path. And so you have to talk to your neighbors. You have to talk to strangers about climate change, about this election, get people out to vote. Because I had family members who didn't vote. I am so politically active. And I had people in my family who forgot to vote and didn't have their plan in place. So make sure your friends and family are ready to vote.
Drag them to the polls. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Take care, y'all.
My name is Allison Van Dyke, and I'm the Executive Director of the Temple of Understanding. And I want to thank our presenters, our poets, and our artists for their contribution to Forum 2024. To help us take action around these environmental issues, which I hope you are all inspired to do, I have included a QR code at the end. The QR code was put together by Interfaith Power and Light, and it is to help us with discussions that we may have with friends in our community. Let us all work together to put environmental issues first and foremost as a priority for the upcoming election. Thank you.